When I say I have issues and this book is problematic, I really bloody mean it. Hello strangers, I'm Ravenna and this is my review / discussion of the book The 7 Imperfect Rules of Elvira Carr by Maynard. I have filmed this video a few times because I had a lot of sound issue and I didn't really know what I wanted to say. Like, I couldn't say what I wanted to say in a real precise way. Like, this video is gonna be long. It just is. I've accepted that. So, this book hasn't actually came out yet, so having a discussion about it should be interesting. But I find this book to be problematic and have bad rep and sensation in it, so I feel like it's worth doing a discussion even though it hasn't come out yet. It'll be out next week on the 24th of August as I'm filming this. In the briefest way to describe this book, it's about a neo-atypical woman who's 27 whose mother basically is gaslit her whole life, so she gets a chance at independence once her mother has to go into her home and she's living by herself. I think the relationship she has with her parents is probably the best part about this book. The main reason I probably picked this book up is because of this lovely cover of the guinea pigs. Sadly, the guinea pigs are kind of just side characters, so it's kind of odd they're on the cover. And on the back it says it's about a 27-year-old woman who is atypical, which is basically like, well, you mean autism, probably. You don't usually describe mental health disorders that way, or dyslexia, but it could be. The marketing is kind of bad, because, like, I never really noticed this, but, like, I kind of wanted, like, the selling points is, this is a story for people who don't fit in, or people who choose not to. Like, extra. This book has some good things about it. Like, I think the relationship with her parents is interesting and plays a big part. The relationship with her mother is very complicated because, yes, she's very much coded autistic, but I feel a lot of her issues come from the fact that her mum's kind of gaslit her whole life and not really let her have any independence, which can be kind of an issue, because I think a lot of people, when they have disabled kids, they just feel like you can't have any independence, and I think it's really important to make sure that you give, you know, your disabled kids as much independence as they can have. It's important for everyone to be as independent as they can be. That should be the goal when raising children, always. Obviously sometimes that can't be the case, but in Ellie's case she's definitely capable of being independent. If I didn't have such serious issues with some of the things that happen or parts of this book, I'd probably rate it like 3 out of 5 stars, but there's some things I just can't get past to rate it any higher than 1 star. So like I said, the description is that she's atypical, but it's like she's coded autistic. If you don't know, neo-atypical can like basically mean lots of things. It just means you have something neurologically that makes your brain not typical, since atypical. Normal people are known as neurotypical. But like I said, neuroatypical can like range from mild dyslexia to bipolar to schizophrenia to autism, obviously. Which kind of brings to some of my issues with this. The word autism is never used. The main character, Ellie, I'm just going to call her that, everyone does. The main character, Ellie, never uses the word autism. Nobody uses the word in any of the actual prose. The word autism does appear in the acknowledgements because Maynard acknowledges the National Autism Society in her acknowledgements, and she lists all these books about autism or by autistic people. So like she's did some research, but it's not done well enough, I guess. Like, she's clearly autistic. I don't know why she doesn't use the word. I'm sick of coded autistic characters. Use the word. We do. I literally tell everyone I'm autistic. I don't care. And it's just kind of weird that she calls it her condition like it's some weird, awful thing. Just calling something a condition like sounds really ominous. For all I know, she has a brain tumour, which would make her neo-atypical. So, does she have a brain tumour, Maynard? Is that what you're actually hiding? She just has a childhood brain tumour? and she doesn't understand social stuff because her mother didn't want her to. When I thought about it, it's just generally bad representation. There's 2 coded autistic characters that actually appear in the book. There's another one mentioned, but we don't really get what she's like. It's not like, there's not any like proper flashbacks to that encounters with her. There's flashbacks through this book, but we don't have one of her, so we just get told what she's like, we never see. And the thing is, when I really thought about it, both of these characters are the exact same, like their traits and stuff, and they don't really have any other difficulties. The only difference is who raised them and their like family backgrounds, like the only thing that really affects them. You know, it's a spectrum, everyone's different, all autistic people are different and have different difficulties and traits. None of the 2 characters have any sensory issues, which I think is kind of weird because most people on the spectrum have sensory issues of some kind. It can be really mild and maybe it's slightly hinted at, but if you don't know about sensory issues, you're not going to pick it up in this book. I just think that's weird that like one of the most common symptoms is not in the book at all. Like sensory issues can vary from like touch to smell to hearing to seeing and to taste. Some people have taste issues as well. Mine ain't extreme, but I definitely still have sensory issues. I'm really sensitive to light, and like if someone touches me, it's like I hate it because like I feel the sensation on my arm for like ages afterwards, and I'm just like, go away. And that's why I don't like getting touched, but I'm fine touching other people and stuff. It also like affects like how I wear jewelry and stuff. Like if I wear something on my arm for a long time, it feels really weird if I take it off. Or sometimes even if it's just like for a second, it feels weird. So I just find it really weird that none of them have sensory issues. I feel like Maynard has just read what autistic people are like and some of the issues they have, but she hasn't read why. Like there's a few scenes that kind of almost go there, but then they don't. Ellie does have like meltdowns sometimes, and that's pretty realistic. This book is very reminiscent of The Curious Incident in the Nighttime by Mark Howardon. And I hate that book for a lot of reasons. It's bad representation of autism if that character is autistic, which he's very much coded to be. But it's just generally bad representation of, I feel, disabled people as a whole. Like it's just, it comes across as being very ableist. A lot of this book comes across as being really ableist without getting into the spoilers. And there's like a specific part I feel like some people would agree with me. Even if you're not on the spectrum, you're kind of like, that's kind of a weird thing to have. I hate autistic coded characters without the label because it's so prevalent and that they just won't call it autism for some reason. And I find it really baffling that she acknowledges autistic sources but not actual autism. I think that's basically kind of the review side over. So now let's just get into discussion. This discussion will be spoilery, and I know that's kind of weird to do considering this book isn't actually out yet. It's going to come out on the 24th of August, so next week. But with all my issues and some of the real problematic things that happen in this book, I feel like it's important to do a discussion about it is straight away. And I have important things to say about it as someone who's actually autistic. Like, I don't know if anyone who was actually autistic read this book during the publishing process, but probably should have. Probably would have helped. To my knowledge, Frances Mayrad doesn't actually know any autistic people. She's taught autistic people, which is not really necessarily the same thing. And I don't know what level they're on. So, big problem is bad representation, like I said. No proper terms are used whatsoever. The term neo-normal is used a lot. Like, she goes up and like looks on stuff online and somehow gets the term neo-normal. And like, I have no idea how she would have found this term because it's a term nobody uses anymore. It's definitely not on the National Autism Society page because they use the term neotypical because that's the correct term. Because normal's like a dirty word when it comes to describing this stuff. Like, you don't use that word, it's subjective. Normal is subjective, so it's never used in like sciencey situations. Like, been describing, because, you know, you're being sciencey. And I don't feel like an autistic person, especially like someone on the Asperger side of autism, would use a non-sciencey word like neuronormal. Like, it does come up if you type neuronormal, it does come up in articles. She's not the first person to use this term, but it's still the wrong term as of 2016 where this book is set. And like I said, I really hate having coded autistic characters without that actual label. I feel like it's really weird to just call it her condition. Near the end of the book, she has a conversation with somebody who's like, he's a long lost whatever. It tells her that the word disabled child was used to describe her. And then she doesn't say anything, but he starts speaking out, oh, I'm so sorry, I would never call you disabled. And don't think of you that way. Like, disabled is a dirty word. And maybe some people do just think of it as a dirty word, but like, it's not. Disabled is not a bad thing. I'm disabled. It's just like a thing about me. It's not a bad thing, it's just a thing. Most disabled people are just like, it's just like one thing about them and like a little fact sheet about them. And I know like some autistic people don't like the word disabled, but I do. I'm fine with it. I feel like we belong to the disabled community, so we should talk about it because, you know, we face a lot of the same issues. So for right now, the term disabled definitely applies because, like, you know, disabled basically means that there's something about you that makes your life hard to live as. And like, compared to other people, to the majority of most society would make you disabled. Like, if we were all blind, you know, being blind wouldn't be a disability, and if we were all deaf, it wouldn't be a disability. It's kind of, I'm just picking those ones because like those are the ones most people kind of get. You know, so it wouldn't be a disability if everyone was like that, but everyone's not. And it's just like a little rant. There's not, I mean, I have other issues, but like, that kind of make me disabled, but they're not as big as a deal, whatever. Disabled is not a dirty word, and I'm like, oh, no. So bad. She also never actually calls herself neuroatypical in the book, or neurodiverted, which is the term I preferably like, because it just sounds cool. It makes me sound like a superhero. And like, I think neuroatypical and neurotypical do kind of get confusing because it's just like one letter difference. But like, neurotypical and neurodivergent is what I use when describing these things, because they're clearly distinct words. So it's easy. And normal's a dirty word when it comes to describing anything, because normal is subjective. That's the thing you should have freaked out about, Frances Maynard. You're having two characters with the same like disability or like life issue, whatever you want to call it, usually means you'll have some diversity with that, but they're the fucking same character. Like, they both love animals, they both are awkwardly social, and that kind of as much as it goes. Yeah, Ellie has meltdowns, but I just like feel they always come from the same thing, and it's having uncomfortable conversations with people or learning about something she's not happy with. It's always emotional, where there's other things to cause meltdowns. Like, she doesn't have any sensory issues, which I just find really weird. Neither of them have sensory issues. None of that is mentioned. And most, like I say, most autistic people have sensory issues, so one of them should have had sensory issues. I just feel like Maynard just like looked this stuff up, but she doesn't understand it. She doesn't understand why autistic people feel uncomfortable around new people, and why she's just like, this is what it is on paper, and it doesn't go any deeper than that. I mean, really, Ellie could just be like a feral child who was never raised properly, the way she's described. I mean, not quite, but you know, the whole gaslighting thing obviously plays a big part in how independent she actually is, and I feel like that's the main reason she's not independent, because she actually comes across as being quite high functioning. And that's why I don't really like the end of the book. Because, like, the book ends with her, she's like, she has fans and she's volunteering and stuff, but I think she should have actually got a job from her volunteering. I feel like if that would have been a nice way to end the book. It would have actually been, like, a nice little thing for Ellie, so she's actually independent. The reason she can be independent is she gets money from a trust fund, and I mean, not all autistic people have trust funds, so it would have been nice for her to actually like have independence, you know. So now I'm kind of getting into kind of like the triggering side of this book, the thing that really made me give it 1 star. I don't think I'm going to discuss anything after that, so if you don't want to listen to, if these like trigger you and you don't want to listen to them, you can just leave now. But basically there's victim blaming in this book and there is sexual assault, so I'm going to like talk about that now. The thing I really didn't like about this book is that there's victim blaming in it and the sexual assault in it, which, you know, can belong in books and media and help reduce the stigma if we talk about stuff. But I just don't feel like it was done very well or it was talked about well enough. The whole point of this book is that Ellie's learning life lessons, and she doesn't learn anything from this. Like, the whole life lesson is, don't trust everyone, is meant to be the lesson. Okay, but she's already had an incident that's happened before where she learned that. Like, somebody was really friendly to her and then pickpocketed her and stole her money. There's that life lesson. Don't trust everyone. Da-da. This isn't really that. Basically, Ellie gets sexually assaulted twice, and I just don't feel like it's treated well enough. I mean, she is a woman who is considered mentally disabled by people around her. Women who are disabled or considered to be disabled are seen as being vulnerable, and a lot of the times are targets, whether they are vulnerable or not, for sexual assault and sexual manipulation. You know, it's a problem. And I just don't feel like this is done well. It happens twice, and she doesn't tell anyone either time. The most that happens is somebody guesses what's happened. But, you know, she never tells anyone the extent of what happened. So the first attack is at a bus stop while she's alone by this guy who volunteers at the same pace she does. This guy she doesn't really know well comes up to her and shoves his tongue in her mouth and gulps her. The incident stops because he hears someone coming and leaves. Same thing, there's another incident. She doesn't tell anyone, she doesn't talk to anyone about this, and I feel like it's really convoluted. And he only stops because he's interrupted by somebody. The next time it's a lot more violent. He actually shoves her against a wall. Basically, this guy gets fired because he throws stuff at wolf cubs and he shouts at them, and he also sexually assaults another woman, but she kicks him in the balls, and she's described as being a big girl so she can handle herself. The thought Ellie has after being told this, she thought, oh, that's what I should have done. So, you know, it comes into the victim blaming, because, like, there's no should have when it comes to stuff like this, because nobody knows what they'll do, and, like, it's very common to fuse up in situations you're uncomfortable with. It's perfectly normal. Like, it's just... it's an awful thing for that to be in a book. I think with the stigma around rape, I feel like right now it needs to be shown. The right situation should be shown when it happens. And it's not like there's like a moment where she like reflects on it and like, oh, I wish I had did the proper thing or anything. It kind of just gets dropped after he gets fired. It's briefly mentioned again, but like this whole book's meant to be her learning life lessons, and I wish she had went and told somebody, or somebody had sat her down and like told, well, what he did was just genuinely wrong. It's not because you didn't understand social signs and stuff. And the thing is, he's never like really friendly towards her. Like, the thing about the boyfriend, can someone force themselves to be your boyfriend thing, is kind of weird, and I don't buy that as being that realistic. Because obviously she is a lot of romance books, so she has some grasp of what romance should be like. But then again, some of those books can be real problematic. And then the next attack happens at the sewer pace that she volunteers at. He attacks her in the middle of the day, and like he pulls her clothes off. And once again, it stops by a orangutan. Basically, orangutan screams at him, and that's what stops that incident. She doesn't tell anyone, and she just quits her job at the volunteering place. She eventually goes back because she bumps into somebody that she'd worked there with, and they tell her, oh, he got fired, he's banned from volunteering there now. But in books, especially with a stigma like this, I think it's more important to be an example of how to deal with something properly than just show it. Especially because it's never addressed really afterwards. Like, there's a brief comment about it, like, I learned from my attempted rapist not to trust people. I mean, that's a horrible lesson, really, when I put it like that. But that's kind of the lesson you can read from it. There's kind of a semi-conversation because somebody guesses that's what's happened, that someone guesses she quit because he's did something to her. But it's never talked about, and that person doesn't know how serious he was. So you can't really gloss over that. I just feel like, I think it could have worked if Maynard had addressed it. Or if him... The thing is, like, he doesn't face consequences for what he did to her. She doesn't tell anyone. And he's just fired by complete trans. So she doesn't have a voice in it at all. And I wish she had talked to somebody. She should have talked to somebody who, like, explained, well, this was wrong, no, you know, consent's important, somebody can't force you to do stuff. And, you know, she's like, she doesn't understand this. It's made clear that she doesn't understand what a sexual relationship should be like, because she, like, says, well, can somebody force themselves to be your boyfriend? And that makes it blatantly clear that she doesn't understand. And the life lesson should have been someone explaining to her, if you're going to have that as a life lesson, or that what he did to her was wrong properly, and that there's no right way to respond to somebody doing that to you. Basically, don't victim blame. It's wrong to victim blame, Maynard. You should learn that. So that's the thing that really pissed me off. Like, I just want to start the book from that, because sexual assault is not something to just be fung about like it's no big deal. I mean, just because it happens a lot doesn't mean it's okay to, like, be insensitive about it or just use it as a fucking random plot point. It's not even like it's important plot point, it's just fucking there's no need for it. I feel like it doesn't belong in the book. Like, it didn't play an important part. Something else could have happened. And it really fucking pisses me off that nobody's talking about it who's reviewed this book. It's like, oh, this is a fun, happy book. Randomly sexual assault. I would never have guessed there was sexual assault in this book the way the people have talked about this book. And that's what really motivated me to do this discussion, as well as, like, my issues with it. It's just, I'm real fucking annoyed. And to be honest, this is, like, the last square when it comes to teachers of autistic people or people with learning disabilities writing books for me. I mean, I read one that was okay by a teacher, but fuck it, I'm never reading an autistic book by a teacher. They can all go fuck themselves. I don't want to fucking hear it anymore. I'm just like, I'm real fucking done. Which is why they're swearing in this. I was just, like, so fucking angry, and I'm still kind of angry. So when I say this book is problematic and I have serious issues with it, I fucking mean it, you know? I think that's everything I wanted to say. This video is probably going to be, like, a real mess to edit. It's just hard how to concisely say what I hate about this book in an easy, understandable way, and I hope I've made myself clear and that you get it. I mean, frankly, if people are going to boycott a book, I would be happy for them to boycott this one. But I feel like Frances Maynard did try, but that doesn't make it okay. Just because you tried doesn't mean this is okay. You still did a bad job. If you're going to deal with things with stigma around them, you have to be careful and you have to do it well. Obviously, autism, I mean, she doesn't use the fucking word, she doesn't use the word autism, so it's clear for some reason autism has a stigma, and she's just perpetuating that, and she's just perpetuating the stigma around sexual assault. So, 1 star, I think, is the start. But I can't in good conscience like recommend this book to anyone or praise it at all, even though, like I said, I think it was a decent book until this happened. Even with the weird just coded autism instead of saying it, it was still okay. It was like not the worst thing I'd ever read. You know, sexual assault is more than a life lesson. I feel like after it happens, it doesn't feel like it happened. It's not dealt with. There needed to be a conversation. It had to be actually addressed. Because, you know, I think the big thing about sexual assault is important that you tell somebody, that you talk to somebody about it. And even if you eventually decide not to press charges, you should still do everything that you can so that maybe that you can go back and maybe decide to, like, you know, you can go to the police and still not press charges and stuff, and DNA can be collected, evidence can be collected, and that was never at all addressed. And it just, after it happens, it's gone from the book. Once he gets fired and she goes back, it's just, that's gone. Now we're gonna figure out if Dad was a spy or just a dirtbag. So that's basically everything I wanted to say. I hope this was a coherent video, and I don't know, this book just still pissed me off, and I don't know, I want better from the media, and you won't get better unless you call people out on their shit, so this is me doing that. I will see you weirdos next time, where hopefully my video will be cheerier than this one, because this was fucking depressing. Farewell.